My daughter's name is Imani Dior. She 4, and her name means beautiful faith in Swahili.
She had no father when she was growing up. She battled through a custody dispute that made headlines all over the world. No amount of money could make up for the millions she inherited. Imani Asghedom, the 18-year-old daughter of Nipsey Hussle, is now getting around Los Angeles on her own terms. Additionally, some claim that she is beginning to follow the same route that made her father both a target and a legend. Imani Dior Asghedom recently reached maturity. If you knew the whole story, you would be devastated by the life she is leading at the moment. And we're going to tell you everything today. Hey, how are you, family? Welcome back. You are already aware that we don't do surface-level coverage. If you have been watching our channel, we go into the true story behind the headlines, including the facts, family relationships, street culture, and tragedy. And tonight we're delving deeply into one of the most poignant tales in hip-hop at the moment. This is a detailed account of Imani Asghedom, the firstborn child of Nipsey Hussle, who recently entered maturity with a burden that most adult men could not bear. We are discussing a young woman who lost her father when she was 10 years old, became embroiled in a protracted public custody dispute, and is now on the verge of maturity in one of the most complex zip codes in the nation. Before we begin, please make sure you hit the like and subscribe buttons if you're new to the narrative. You'll want to be involved right away. Now let's get started. Now, before we get into Imani's narrative, let me be completely honest with you and set the scene. You need to know who her father was, where he came from, and what sort of world she was born into in order to comprehend what she's living in right now. Born Ermias Joseph Asghedom on August 15, 1985, Nipsey Hussle was more than just a rapper. He was a father, an activist, a business visionary, and a community builder. He was up in one of the nation's most gang-heavy neighborhoods, Crenshaw, South Central Los Angeles. Angelique Smith, his mother, was African American. His father, Dawit Asghedom, was an immigrant from Eritrea who left his homeland during a conflict in search of a better life in the United States. Nipsey was therefore influenced by two worlds from the beginning: the unvarnished truth of South Central and the pride and discipline of African heritage. Ermias joined the Rollins 60s neighborhood Crips, one of the most well-known and established groups in Los Angeles. By the time he was 14, there was no thrill-seeking dream behind this decision. The gang organization served as the community structure in areas such as Crenshaw. It served as defense. It was fraternity. It has to do with identity. From the inside out, Nipsey knew that. And what set him apart from so many others who experienced similar things was that, in the end, he applied all of that knowledge to attempt to alter it. He began to rap. He began to acquire real estate on Slauson Avenue. He basically bought back the block he grew up on when he launched the Marathon clothing store. Victory Lap, his 2018 first album, received a Grammy nomination. He was seriously discussing gang intervention initiatives with city authorities and law police. The code had been cracked by him, ways to leave that world and improve it from within. And he was a father while accomplishing all of this. However, this is where we have to deal with the difficult aspect of the narrative. In front of his own business, Marathon Clothing on Slauson and Crenshaw, and Nipsey Hussle was shot and died on March 31, 2019. His age was 33. Eric Holder, the man who killed him, lived in the same neighborhood and was even a member of the same gang. The whole hip-hop community was rocked by its absurdity. 2 children were left behind, and they would have to grow up without their father. Imani Dior Asghedom, his daughter, was one of those children. She was 10 years old. Check it out. Then, November 9, 2008, Nipsey Hussle became a father for the first time on that day. Nipsey's then-girlfriend Tanisha Foster gave birth to Imani Dior. At the age of 23, Nipsey was still working hard in the underground rap scene, releasing mixtapes and creating what would grow into an empire. He was not yet well-known. He was not yet affluent. However, by all accounts, something in him changed irrevocably the moment that little girl was born. In the ghetto, we know that having a child before you found your footing may go one of two ways. It either ignites a fire beneath you or draws you down. It started the biggest fire you've ever seen, according to Nipsey. He candidly discussed how becoming a father completely altered his perspective and grind. I'm paraphrasing Nipsey when he said in a 2018 interview with Stephen Curry that, looking back, having children was probably the best thing he ever did. He felt that way about being a father. It's crucial to realize that Nipsey and Tanisha's relationship was intermittent for years. That's how much Imani and later Cross meant to him. Later, he developed feelings for actress Lauren London, with whom he was romantically involved from around 2013 until his passing. However, despite the complexities of their connection, Nipsey never abandoned Imani. He was there. He was busy. He escorted her to activities. He posted about those experiences on social media. Over the years, a number of people in his social circle attested to the genuine and profound nature of his relationship with Imani. Imani's father was more than simply a rapper, and she grew up witnessing that relationship. She saw him transform a clothes store into a movement. She observed him conducting free health fairs in Crenshaw. She observed him having meetings with activists and politicians. She had the opportunity to witness the side of Nipsey Hussle that the rest of the world was just starting to comprehend. And that was only her father in her impressionable imagination. Former co-workers and family members have talked about how Nipsey would emphasize integrity and leadership to Imani, trying to give her the kind of grounding that would carry her through life, regardless of what came. Nipsey was a man who showed up, cared, had a plan, and tried every day to be a compass in a neighborhood that had none. Those lessons were priceless for a little girl growing up under Crenshaw's shadow. On March 31, 2019, Imani was 10 years old. Despite her father's best efforts to be her pillar of support in a complex world, that pillar was abruptly taken away. She was the daughter of a future living legend when she awoke that morning. Let's take a moment to consider that she became the daughter of a martyr by that afternoon. Losing a parent to street violence in South Central is not an abstract concept for anybody familiar with the culture. It is a particular generational wound. However, Imani's passing took place in front of everyone on the planet. The internet went crazy. Thousands of people attended the vigils outside Marathon Clothing. There were tributes from Barack Obama, LeBron James, Jay-Z, and many others. She had to deal with her own personal suffering while the entire world was mourning her father. There was no calm place for her to collapse. Imani was present during a hearing in LA County Superior Court, a few weeks after his death in May 2019. The grieving had an audience, and that audience never left. According to TMZ, she was overcome with emotion when she saw her mother, Tanisha Foster, in the courtroom that day. Tanisha reportedly started crying. The hearing to determine Imani's future legal guardian had concluded, and that marked the start of one of the most agonizing periods of her early life. This is when things get really complex, family. Following Nipsey's passing, his mother, Angelique Smith, brother Black Sam, and sister Samantha Smith acted swiftly to get Imani's legal guardianship. The family claimed that Tanisha Foster, Imani's mother, had a history of substance addiction and had been involved in unsettling occurrences involving children. Therefore, they were concerned that Tanisha was unable to provide her with the necessary care. Tanisha, on the other hand, acknowledged her own financial constraints and wanted to ensure that Imani kept the way of life and relationships she had established with Nipsey's family. So she willingly consented to let the Asghedom family assume guardianship, at least initially. Tanisha filed a petition to have the guardianship dissolved in 2022 because she trusted them and they failed to fulfill their half of the bargain. She asserted that Nipsey's family had prevented her from seeing her own daughter by using their financial clout and influence. She said they had promised involvement and financial support, but it never materialized as planned. There is no longer any need for guardianship, Tanisha stated in her court application. Imani longed to live with her mother, and she herself was asking when they could finally be together again. Imani frequently asks me when we will be able to live together. She yearns for me to be her mommy. That is truly heartbreaking. I am pleading with the court to end the current guardianship. A mother pleaded in court to be let to raise her own daughter after being separated from her child. Imani was trapped squarely in the middle of all of this for years. On the other side, there was a family zealously defending the kid of a guy they loved and lost. While she was just trying to be a teenager, she was growing up, grieving, and witnessing the two sides of her world fight over her in courtrooms and legal documents. Now, the real kicker and the news that many people have been sleeping in is that this custody dispute finally came to an end in March 2025. Tanisha Foster was formally given joint, physical, and legal custody of Imani, sharing that custody with Black Sam. According to court paperwork filed on March 5, 2025, this is the breakdown of the arrangement. Imani spends half of her time with her uncle Black Sam Asghedom, and the other half with her mother Tanisha. Nipsey's sister Samantha Smith and mother Angelique Smith resign as co-guardians as part of the new arrangement. In terms of Imani's well-being, Black Sam is still the only guardian on the family side, but Tanisha and Black Sam have equal decision-making authority. The court agreement also confirms that Imani should continue to participate in all extracurricular and academic activities, regardless of whether she stays with her mother or Black Sam. Now, for those of you who may not realize how important this is, let me explain. Custody disputes seldom end thus amicably among families coping with the fallout from a high-profile death on the streets, particularly when money and influence are at stake. It says something that both parties reached a consensus instead of pressuring a court to render a decision. It implies that at some point, the focus returned to what was truly best for Imani, who was turning 16 at the time this agreement was entered, is old enough that her own voice most likely had an impact on the result. However, this isn't just about formal documents. This is about a young woman who was divided between two families for much of her adolescent years, grieving the loss of her father, living under public scrutiny, and never having a genuine opportunity to be a typical child. The custody decision was a positive start. However, a court document cannot repair the emotional harm caused by those years of uncertainty. This is where we must address an issue that many people are interested in, because there is more to Imani's story than meets the eye. The question of income, legacy, and daily life is crucial to comprehending the kind of environment Imani is growing up in. Let's start with the estate. Black Sam filed a complete accounting report of Nipsey's estate holdings in November 2023, and the figure that emerged was $11 million. This relates to how the entire Asghedom family and circle is living now, years after Nipsey's passing. This is how it breaks down. The report confirmed that Imani and Cross are the only beneficiaries of their father's estate, each receiving a 50% share. The remaining $4 million is distributed among business interests, including 100% membership in All Money, Inc., 100% interest in Marathon Studios, 100% interest in the Marathon Touring Company, 100% interest in Marathon Clothing Inc., and Nipsey Hussle's entire trademark portfolio. Since Cross is still a minor, his mother, Lauren London, is managing his share on his behalf, making her a legal shareholder in Nipsey's companies. Through the guardianship arrangement with Black Sam, Imani's share has been managed. From a business perspective, Black Sam has been the driving force behind maintaining Nipsey's legacy. Both the physical store in Slauson and the internet store are still open for business. Additionally, Black Sam verified the construction of a Marathon Burger restaurant, a fast food concept situated on the same block where Nipsey set his foundation, next to the original Marathon clothing business. This kind of expansion indicates that the Asghedom family isn't merely living off inheritance wealth. Beyond the commercial aspect, Black Sam has hinted at the potential release of new Nipsey Hussle songs in 2025. They are actively developing unpublished work that Nipsey completed before to his passing. Sam has been cautious about it, openly stating that they won't release it if Hussle didn't write the verse, collaborate with anyone, or create the project's blueprint. It is noteworthy that he has integrity regarding his brother's legacy. He is not attempting to profit from anything that Nipsey did not personally approve of. Lauren London, on the other hand, has been one of the most visible representatives of advancing the marathon. She founded the Nipsey Hussle 100K Pitch program in 2024 in collaboration with Microsoft, Earn Your Leisure, and Marathon Clothing. This grant program awards $100,000 to Black entrepreneurs to assist in growing their enterprises. When you look at the whole picture of the estate, the clothing brand, the music catalog, the community programs, and the business competitions, you can see that Nipsey's family is not having financial difficulties. That initiative was a direct continuation of one of Nipsey's deepest passions, financial literacy and Black ownership. Lauren has used her platform, her acting career, and her position within the estate to keep that mission alive every year. Far from it. However, the most important factor to consider when discussing Imani in particular is this: not everything can be fixed with money, not even close. Let's now discuss Imani's current location, because this is the main topic of the video. I also want to be honest with you about what we know and don't know. We know this because this young lady is still developing her identity and needs time to do it. On November 9th, 2008, Imani Dior Asghedom was born. She has been living in Los Angeles, divided between her mother's house and her Uncle Black Sam's home. According to the 2025 custody arrangement, depending on when you're watching this, she is around 17, turning 18, and crossing the line into legal adulthood in real time. She has been pictured at social events and family get-togethers, and according on what we can see on social media, she is developing into a self-assured young lady who embodies her father's appearance and spirit in a way that is hard to miss. In November 2024, Imani shared a video on social media that attracted a lot of attention. The hip-hop world responded with an unbelievable amount of affection when fans and the media pointed out how much she resembled Nipsey. She has her father's eyes. Fans from all around the world, as well as members of the Crenshaw community and those who knew her father personally, flooded her comments with nothing but support and good wishes. She possesses his vitality, and for those who adore Nipsey, witnessing Imani take charge of her own life is among the most poignant things the culture has seen in a long time. It's both lovely and almost terribly bittersweet to have a piece of someone you lost continue moving through the world. Here's where we have to keep it 100 though, because this isn't just a heartwarming tale, and the title of this video wasn't written by accident. There are genuine worries about what Imani's life is like on the ground. Her father was in his 60s, and she grew up in South Central with culture ingrained in her family's DNA. Black Sam. Her uncle had a strong connection to that same culture. The truth is that Imani's cultural upbringing has not altered just because her father advocated for change. Nipsey himself spent years attempting to distance himself from that life while maintaining ties to it. He mediated truces amongst gangs. He was employed by law enforcement. The streets around Slauson and Crenshaw don't simply change overnight because a legend says they should. Imani is a teenager growing up in those same streets with those same cultural pressures without her father there to guide her through it. Many in the community are silently wondering who is watching over her in that specific way. Is Black Sam, a man who has put in a lot of effort to manage the legacy, also making a conscious effort every day to ensure that she is not drawn into the same gravitational pull that claimed her father's life? These are not charges. The sad reality is that inherited wealth is not a guarantee of safety or direction when the cultural environment around you stays unchanged. Imani will inherit her share of a multi-million-dollar estate. These are the questions that people who love Nipsey are asking out of genuine concern because they witnessed a man who attempted to transcend the streets get killed in front of his own store. They are not trying to watch his daughter walk that same road, but she's also growing up in a neighborhood where gang affiliation is still a daily reality, where everyone who loved Nipsey is watching her every move, and where the memory of her father is painted on murals right outside the very spot where he was murdered. That kind of pressure is something no teen should have to carry, and she's doing it mostly without the one person who is meant to help her carry it. Imagine what it means to walk into a room in Crenshaw with the last name Esk. Consider what it means to go to school, hang out with friends, or simply being a teenager, while every adult in your orbit either works for your father's estate, grew up in his shadow, or knows every detail of his murder. Imani Khan's face is just around the corner from where she sleeps. In communities like Crenshaw, legacy is everything. When your father is Nipsey Hussle, you are not just his daughter. You are a symbol. You represent something to thousands of people. Everywhere Imani goes in that neighborhood, people see her and they see him. That is both a blessing and a burden at the highest level. The blessing is the love. No one is going to let anything happen to Nipsey's daughter. That is not a background detail. That is her everyday reality. Not in that block. Not in that community. The Crenshaw community, the extended Rollin family from the 1960s, the business people Nipsey developed genuine relationships with, and the activists he collaborated with all have a stake in ensuring his children's well-being. She is a protective circle that most young women in South Central could never imagine. The burden is just as substantial as the safety, as that protective circle carries a culture. You cannot be Nipsey Hussle's daughter in Crenshaw and be totally immune to what Crenshaw is, because that culture contains the same norms, morals, and gravitational pull that Nipsey himself spent his final years attempting to gradually modify while ever being able to fully leave. That is not how any of this operates. Anyone who genuinely understands that environment will not be shocked by the observations that Imani may be leaning toward that street lifestyle, following in her father's footsteps, not only in terms of music and entrepreneurship, but also in the gang culture that defined his early world. They are devastating, but they are not shocking. This is the cycle. Nipsey was battling against this trap with everything he had. The real sadness is that his death might have undermined the very defense he was providing for his daughter. This is not about assigning blame. In the end, Imani Asghadam's predicament is more than the tale of a single girl. It is about realizing what is true. This is about what happens to children who are left behind by street violence in culturally rich communities that lack the structural assistance necessary to break these patterns and alter outcomes for future generations. Nipsey Hussle had a better understanding of this than most others. He used to say, "The marathon continues," meaning the work doesn't stop. The grind doesn't stop. The mission doesn't stop. He was talking about himself. He was talking about his community. But most of all, whether he framed it in those exact terms or not, he was talking about his children. Imani is now carrying that marathon. She is carrying his name, his legacy, his blood, and the expectations of millions of people who loved her father and want his story to mean something beyond tragedy. She is doing it as a teenager, without him in the same neighborhood where he was taken, with a family that has done its best to hold things together while also navigating their own pain in public battles. And still, this needs to be said. She is here, she is standing. Every birthday, every public appearance, every video clip she posts is proof that she is moving forward. For a child who lost her father at the age of 10, in the way that she did in front of the entire world, that forward motion is not a small thing. That is everything. The real question is whether the systems around her, the family, the estate, the community, the legacy infrastructure Nipsey spent his life building, are doing the deep intentional work required to help Imani become the woman her father believed she was capable of being, the one he was investing in before he was taken. Grief does not run on a schedule, and growing up in the public eye with no room to grieve quietly, with a whole culture watching and projecting expectations onto you, that kind of pressure can push a young person in directions that no amount of money or legacy can course correct on its own. Needed more than a guardianship arrangement. She needed consistent, intentional mentorship. She needed space to figure out who she is outside of her father's story. She needed and still needs people around her who love her for Imani, not just for what she represents to the culture, because Nipsey Hussle didn't just leave behind a $11 million estate. He left behind a daughter who, in the next few years, is going to make the decisions that define the rest of her life. And the marathon he started, the real one, the one that was always about people, not just music, depends on her being okay. Look, Imani's story doesn't have a clean ending yet, and that's exactly what makes it so important to talk about. She's not a closed chapter. She is a young woman right now in real time, figuring out who she is and what her life is supposed to mean. She has access to wealth that most People in her neighborhood will never see she has a support system built around one of the most beloved names in hip-hop history, but she also has wounds that no dollar amount can close and a road ahead that requires a lot more than money to navigate. With any kind of grace, Nipsey Hussle spent his whole career telling the world that ownership, community, and perseverance could beat the odds. He was the proof of concept, and now his daughter is the next test of that theory. At the end of the day, we want to see Imani win. The culture wants to see her win. Not as Nipsey's daughter, but as Imani Dior Eskedem, standing on her own, building something that makes his spirit proud. The marathon continues, and right now, more than ever, it continues through her. What are your thoughts on Imani's story and what her future holds? Post it in the comments. If this video struck a chord with you today, please hit the like button and tap the video on the screen for more in-depth discussions similar to this one. I truly want to hear from you all on this one. Each and every one of you who rides with us is much appreciated. Tranquility.